But good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Bobby Mann. I'm the Maddie's Human Animal Support Services Pilot Director. I'm so honored and excited to be here introducing two amazing speakers. As you can see from the slide deck, this is going to be all about pet reunification, how lost cat psychology can keep cats out of shelters. We have Kimberley Freeman here from lostcatfinder.com, who I personally call a lost cat expert and guru. So I'm so excited that she is here. And also Monica Frenden-Tarant, who is with the American Pets Alive team as our feline life-saving expert, thanks to Maddie. So Monica and Kimberley, I'm going to toss it over to you. I know y'all have another question to kick it off with the group.
I was Happy New Year first, everybody. I'm honored to be here with Monica. I'm wondering how many people here work with shelters. You can just put a yes in the chat box.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, what do you see, Monica?
That is amazing news. All the yeses are flooding in. That really warms my heart. You're going to learn in a couple slides here the inspiration for doing this webinar tonight. And it really, for me, was all about shelter workers and shelter volunteers and shelter staff, and teaching you guys how lost cat psychology can get more cats out of your shelters and back in the homes where they came from. So I love all those yeses that are pouring in. So we've got a lot of slides tonight. We're going to do our best to get through them all. If we run late, we run late. If we don't get to all your questions, we will, Kim and I will make sure that we answer them after, but we're going to get going right away. And thank you for joining us all tonight. And of course, thanks to Maddie's for making content like this possible.
Yes, absolutely. So lost cat psychology. It's funny because almost every case I get, the owner has already been searching for a while, and they don't understand why the cats aren't coming to their call or even running away from them if they see them. So I'm asked all the time, why do they do that? That's part of what we're going to talk about. As far as my background, before I did this, I was helping people with cat behavior in their home. In 2008, I took some missing pet partnership with my trailblazing hero, Cat Albrecht. And since then, I've done courses in tracking and fur and scat analysis, bird language, all these things that help with tracking lost cats. So here is Mr. Perk, my inspiration. He's the reason why I started doing lost cat recovery full-time. The story is back in Texas. When I lived in Canyon Lake, Mr. Purr went missing. And for days, I got advice like, put up flyers, put his litter box out. I was even told, oh, he probably got eaten by a coyote. But he wasn't. Mr. Purr was trapped in right here behind that phone pole. He was stuck in one of those metal shipping containers. And this was in summer, very hot. He had snuck in apparently when they were getting tools out, I guess. But he would have died if I had relied on flyers or a litter box or hoping neighbors would keep an eye out. Monica, you know how this feels. Those 4 days were so stressful. Nobody was helping me. Well, you had some help, but nobody was helping me back in 2008. Nobody was giving me good advice. The guilt, the grief, the worry, anxiety, nobody quite gets it until it happens to them. So here's the upside. If I hadn't gone through those 4 days of hell, I might never have made the jump to helping other people and eventually recovering lost cats as a job. So since then, I've helped lots of families, but also veterinarians and cat rescues. But recently I got to assist one of my cat heroes, our national director of Feline Lifesaving, Monica. You want to tell us about your inspiration?
Yeah, so this is my inspiration for doing this webinar, and this was one of the worst nights of my life in recent memory. This is Davy the cat. Davy is my boyfriend's cat, and he got out the door one night when my boyfriend was carrying in some stuff. And so I get a panicked phone call from my boyfriend that the cat has run out. He's been chasing it around and around the house for a while now, can't catch the cat. So I race over there. I'm chasing the cat around and around the house. And this is in the middle of the night. It's pitch black. We can see the cat. Now I can't find the cat. And this went on until maybe midnight or 1 a.m. And it finally dawned on me, you idiot, what are you doing? I can hear Kim's voice in the back of my head saying, you're making things worse. But I had no idea how to get it back in. All these ideas and things we read on the internet were going through my head. The litter box, shake the can of treats. Do I call his name? What in the world am I supposed to do? Because she is also a crazy woman in the best possible way, I called Kim and she answered the phone, despite it being like 1 a.m. The advice that Kim gave me seemed absolutely crazy. She was asking me questions about, you can see that in the text messages there that we were going back and forth. Is it going to rain tonight? I need a topographical map of the neighborhood. Give me the complete personality assessment of this cat. What kind of cars are parked up and down the street? I mean, these questions, I'm sitting here, my boyfriend's looking at us like we're both crazy women. And I had to finally tell him, because you are absolutely panicked. I had to tell him, you need to leave. Go in the house, lock yourself off. You're making things worse. Please trust that Kim and I have this. And he had to leave because the panic is so real. And it dawned on me, though, that I didn't know how to find this cat. I didn't know how to get him back. I am this national expert of feline life-saving, and I didn't know how to get this cat back in the house. All I knew was that it was the worst feeling in the world. We could see him, and then he would disappear, and then he's gone for an hour. And I knew I had to stop chasing. I had to stop the impulse, the incredible impulse we have to chase and get that cat back. I knew I had to stop it. And I had to make a very conscious decision that despite every impulse in my body telling me what to do, I have to stop that and I have to listen to Kim. I don't know what I'm doing here, and I'm going to listen to Kim. Thank God this story has a happy ending. Davey was recovered. He was recovered to the exact hour that Kim said he was most likely to be recovered. And he was recovered in the way that Kim said was most likely to be recovered based on his personality. And I came out of this going, this has been one of the worst nights of my life. The panic, I can't even tell you, those of you who have had this situation happen, you know, but I realized I don't know how to do this work. I don't know how to recover lost cats. And Davey was not even microchipped at the time. And so he is now, but he wasn't microchipped at the time. And so I came out of this going, how many cats, how many Davies are there in our shelters that people gave up on looking for, or they didn't recover for whatever reason? And if I don't know how to recover a lost cat, how many shelter staff and shelter advocates and volunteers know the right ways? So Davey was the inspiration for this. The next day when we all came down from our adrenaline rush, I contacted Kim and said, we have got to talk about this. People have got to learn how to recover lost cats, because there's nothing, it works nothing like what we've been taught and what is on the internet. And so that is the inspiration for tonight's webinar. So I hope that while we have a happy ending here, a lot of cats don't. And so I hope that we can improve on that.
Yeah, and I want to make it, Monica is the perfect example of how this can happen to even the very best owners. Nobody thinks it's going to happen to them, but they have a visitor come over and they do something stupid. So you just never know. But yeah, Monica, I think totally got it after the adrenaline came down. Getting info to owners when they suddenly realize they need it could mean fewer cats in shelters. It's a little bit of a jump, but basically if owners have smarter ways to search and are successful, then we don't end up with this influx of strays, cats that were never found coming into the shelter. So educating owners, fewer cats land in shelters. So let's look at this on a national basis. This is a quick glimpse of the average shelter outcome. Now this is over 10 years' time. The big red section represents cats euthanized. So out of all the cats that come in, this is the percentage. The red is the percentage who don't make it out. Now this is changing. It's shrinking, but it's still much too large. And this is what I want to address. This is exactly what I think we can change. And you can see here, shelters used to focus a lot of energy, well, they still do, on adoption. And that saved about a quarter of the cats, but we can do better. And luckily we are doing better.
So we're doing a little better, but not much. The most recent data from Best Friends showed a significant annual decrease in the number of animals killed in shelters. However, things are still really, really bleak for cats in shelters compared to dogs. Cats are still losing their lives in shelters at a rate of more than 2 cats to 1 dog. The national reclaim rate for cats, the return to owner for cats right now, nationwide is 3%. So if a cat is impounded in an animal control facility or animal shelter, there's only a 3% chance that that cat ever makes it back home to its owner, despite the fact that 75% of our intake are stray cats. So how many of those strays are owned pets, owned cats that have somebody that was looking for them that for whatever reason, they've never recovered? And that's what I think the heart of this webinar is about, is that we can do better and we can close that 75% stray, and we can really increase that 3% national RTO rate, which we can all agree is absolutely abysmal.
Yeah. So let's quickly go over why it's so much worse for the cats and some ways to solve it. And maybe if we can trim the intake, we can improve the outcomes. So one of the issues is that so much of the advice you see on Facebook groups and shelter pages is geared to lost dogs. Monica?
If you've heard me speak before, you've heard me say a million times that cats are not small dogs. So much of the information we get in industry is about dogs. Cats were thrown into a system designed for dogs, and that's very much true for lost pet reunification. Most of our Facebook lost pet groups are dog focused. And it boils down to everything that we're told and everything that we read on the internet when we are frantically searching in, my cat got out the door, what do I do? Post flyers, post to this Facebook group, talk to your neighbors, do X, Y, and Z. Everything was dog focused. And if it was cat focused, it was terrible advice. It was terrible advice, like put the litter box outside and things that we now know, thanks to Kim, are not what we should be doing. And while microchips are incredible tools and every cat is ideally microchipped, most cats are not microchipped. And there's a lot of reasons for this. And we've got a few of them listed here. But how many people, everyone on this call who works in shelters, you've all heard this. She's not microchipped because she doesn't go outside. She'll never get outside. She's an indoor only cat. Why would I do that? She hates going to the vet. Well, how many microchip clinics only serve cats? We're expected to parade our cat in front of 200 dogs that are also waiting for microchips. We've created an entire environment for cats that is not conducive to the species. It's not species appropriate. And so overwhelmingly, cats are not microchipped. So even if your cat is, most cats aren't. Even if your cat is, though, that enough cats are still not getting home. But we cannot rely only on a microchip in this case to reunite more lost cats with their owners.
Yeah, it would help, but yeah. Another issue besides microchips and dog-focused advice are outdated search methods. These are the main offenders here that I see. Just about everyone I coach has already tried this advice with the food and the litter and the walking and the calling. I see this stuff.
I did all of those things that night, except the litter box. I knew enough to not put the litter box out, but I did the other two. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I still see it every day from armchair experts on Nextdoor propagating bad advice. But in addition to the old wives' tales, there's also misconceptions like the went off to die assumption. I've heard it from people who had an 8-year-old cat, like they thought that was old enough to be ancient. But the worst one, the one I dread the most is when people are told eaten by a coyote. I don't know, it's so cruel. You wouldn't say that to someone with a lost puppy. It shuts down. When people hear that, it can shut down even the most hopeful search. But yeah, most of these assumptions are wrong. Let's talk about what's right, what's been proven by science and borne out by experience. So back to our topic, understanding how lost cats act when they're out of their element is the key to getting them found. The cat who always comes when you shake the treat jar at home is going to act a lot different after falling out of a carrier at the vet's parking lot, which unfortunately happens more than I would like to say. But a panicked owner doesn't process this, and they will base their search on random scraps of advice, plus what their cat was like at home. And then when that doesn't work, they give up, usually after 2 to 10 days, average, and assume the worst. This is kind of an extreme example. This is Petra. She was lost in late January and presumed dead by March. The owner assumed that she'd been killed by a coyote, but 10 months later, I found her. She was skinny and matted, but very much alive in December. It's amazing what cats can survive. They can get through tough times, even areas with heavy coyote population and burned up fire zones. So let's talk about differences between lost cats and dogs. In general, dogs roam, cats hide. When dogs get out, they run. They run from cars, they run from people trying to catch them. They run and they roam, but they're seen. Cats hide, and boy, are they good at it. A stressed cat can stay hidden and silent for days. Their personality affects usually how long, as does whether they're indoor or outdoor. And they go into this survival mode where nothing matters but their safety, which means being undetected. Food is not on their list of priorities here. So the survival mode usually lasts around 10 days to 2 weeks. Remember that 2-week thing of that's about when owners give up? That's when the cat's finally going to come out. The good news is they really are awesome survivors. When I was helping out in California after the wildfires, you would find houses burned to the ground, but the cat was still alive weeks later. So those fire cats are a good example of feline PTSD. However, cats can have PTSD even without a national disaster, fire, or flood. So think about it from a cat's point of view, especially one that's never been out. For all they know, the world is crawling with stalking, hungry beasts that are just waiting for them to make a sound. When you factor in cat senses, it's even worse. Studies show that cats can't really tell humans apart, especially outside. And since they identify their humans partly by scent, that's an issue because they're less likely to pick up scent outdoors. All they know is something big is coming, and survival mode says, get the hell out of there. That's what Davy was doing, right? It's like something big is on my ass, not sticking around. They can also, their little radar ears can tell the direction and speed of approach, so they know exactly when and how to evade whatever predator eyes are looking at them. They also don't see red-orange hues, and they're basically nearsighted. So, that's good for stalking prey, but it's not good if you're coming at them from across the street. You just look like a blur. People can see 200 feet pretty well, but cats see well about 20 feet in front of them, and they're not going to let anything big get that close. So with all this considered, how do we overcome all these feline evasion tactics? Well, a good start, and this is what I base just about every case on. I mean, this is I was asking you, Monica, all the details about Davy's personality. This is something Kat Albrecht, my previously mentioned pet detective pioneer, Kat developed this system where she could break down all cat types into 4 categories. So we got the friendly cat who's not afraid of people, greets a stranger at the door. They're usually the first to emerge from the threshold period. Then there's the cautious cat. He's skeptical of people, might eventually allow someone to pet them, but these are going to take longer. You might get occasional sightings, but it'll take longer. And then there is the careful cat, more nervous. We're going down the list in terms of sort of startle response. Careful cats tend to only emerge at night when the light is dim and cars have stopped moving. And they also tend to be the most skeptical of traps. Last is the xenophobic. These are the super skittish cats that run and hide when someone comes to visit, and they don't come out for hours after the person's left. So when they're out, they usually only come out at night, and they are super careful. This is Sierra. Sierra is a xenophobic, but she doesn't look like it here because this was taken after we found her and she was sleeping it off. But she was lost at a condo complex, and I don't know if you can see the map here, but she ran out the door. Somebody came over with a dog, freaked her out. She ran out the door. She was gone for 12 days with 0 sightings when they called me. So you can see it's all parking lot right outside that door. So what does lost cat psychology say for this situation? That she's going to hide from all noise and activity, right? So in this case, there's a lot of parked cars. And to a cat, that's the outdoor version of going under the bed. But at apartments and condos, there's a lot of people and dogs and cars going past. So that's not feeling safe. So considering that 100-foot radius of the door was all parking lot, her next best bet is to go underground. So we set up a camera, as you can see, to watch the storm drains. We got an image of her that very night. So the next day I put a trap in the tunnel and we caught her at midnight. So very, very happy reunion, happy owners. I have a video of this case if anybody's interested. But yeah, Sierra's an example of how you can put a flyer on every phone pole and a post on every Facebook page, but these cats are not coming out to be seen. Oops, I think I skipped something. Yeah, this is Ruby. All right, Ruby, this is a cautious cat example, indoor only. Owner was bringing in groceries late at night, then went to the gym at 5 the next morning. She got home and realized Ruby was missing. So she searched the complex, put up flyers, talked to neighbors, and then someone suggested that she call me. And this was in 2015. And I was so excited to take my search cat, Henry, to track and see which way she went when she got out of the garage. And this was one of his first cases. So it was in the middle of summer, really hot outside, and Henry went straight under the car and laid down. I thought he didn't want to work, but when I crawled under the car, I spotted 3 orange hairs clinging to the chassis. Here you can see the owner focused on the little spot where I found the hairs. This was after the mystery was solved. So the chances were high that Ruby had climbed up into the guts of her truck and taken a ride to the gym. When I got Henry settled in her guest room, we put up posters at every stop along the route she had driven that morning. And around the 3-mile mark, we got a tip from someone who had, quote, seen a cat thrown out of a truck. You know, people, anyway, crouched in the middle of the road. So we found her by searching a 100-foot radius of that point in the road. And this is me and the owner, Anne Marie, I found her in a garage, and she was under one of those Craftsman tool chests. I mean, it was like this much clearance. You know, the rule is if you can fit your fist in it, a whole cat can get in there. So took her to the vet and she had one scuff on her shoulder. That was it. Another great survival tale. All right, this next one is a good displaced cat psychology case. This also illustrates the harm of, typical cookie cutter advice. This was Poncho. I love that name. Out in Berkeley, California. He got out of his harness, lost in the wilderness. You can kind of see the area. This is Grizzly Peak, I think they called it. Unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of these kind of cases with the whole adventure cat trend. Anyway, as soon as he was out of the car, he backed out of the harness, ran down the hill. They got a search party of friends and local rescues to come help, and then spent 12 days combing the hills, calling, shaking treats. I don't know if they did the litter box, but they set a lot of baited traps, which drew in a lot of hungry wildlife, including coyotes. Bobcat, I don't know why a deer was interested in the bait, but here's the coyote in the top right. So here's what my lost cat data and experience shows with these kind of cases. Some cats in these situations will immediately seek shelter, and some will stay near the scene, and some will start migrating towards home. The key is to cover, for me, the key is to cover all the angles instead of just tunnel vision in on one. So in this case, they assumed that Poncho was progressing in the direction last seen, which was down the hill, and that he was roaming the countryside and just needed to pass by a trap to be recovered. So they had been doing this for a while with traps and moving traps around. I suggested, when they contacted me, I suggested they call off the search parties, get rid of the traps, dispose of the food elsewhere, and let things settle, let things quiet down so the cat could settle down. Then at dusk, I told them to go back to the scene, just the two of them, sit near where the car had been parked and just talk quietly to each other. Poncho, at about midnight, they got a tiny meow, and he was right up a little above where the car had been parked in this dense green stuff here. So he was near the point where he last felt safe. So this was a case of trying the simple solution first. There's Poncho. Isn't he cute? And I forgot what Alex was. Alex was like some sort of super amazing scientist at Berkeley. And, she was just so happy, so happy. All right, last case is Emily. Emily was adopted, and after 2 weeks, she was still hiding under the bed. The owners had tried lying next to the bed with a bowl of food to pet her, and she just wasn't having it. So then one morning, Emily was not under the bed, and the owners panicked because they realized they had left the garage door open. So they immediately put up fires, alerted the neighbors, checked the shelters, set up traps. They even left the kitchen door open in case she tried to get back under the bed. But with the door open, some other critter got in. They heard these creepy scratching, scraping sounds under their kitchen cabinet. So I suggested they set up a trap in the kitchen to get the critter off the scene. And sure enough, at midnight, they caught the critter. But guess what? The critter was Emily. The scratching under the counter was Emily. So once they got her to the vet, they learned she had 2 abscessed teeth. So she had left her original safe spot to find something darker where she wouldn't be pestered. So good news is, now that she's out of pain, she has warmed up and sleeps on the bed instead of under it, and is a happy, normal kitty again. So after a few years of this, I got some advice. A lot of you might know Monica Dangler, another great Monica. She was in Austin at the time, and Monica suggested that I put all this knowledge and data into an online tips guide so I could reach a bigger audience and help people who couldn't hire me in person. So owners could get instant access to the right strategy for their cat and their situation. Monica, this always reminds me of I Love Lucy. I don't know why.
Yeah, me too. So not only do we need to get this information to pet parents, so I've asked in the chat how many people has this happened to? Have you ever lost a cat? And as you can see, there's like story after story of, yes, this also happened to me, except I was dealing with alone. I gave up after several weeks. It took me months. It's clear that we, even as industry professionals, don't have this information. The public doesn't have it. If you just Google lost my cat, like Kim said, we're getting all kinds of misinformation out there. And so we need to find ways that not only can the public access correct information when they lose a cat, but as the go-to resource for pet owners in our community, we as industry professionals need to have this information. And so what you've got up here is our Human Animal Support Services public communication guide for lost cats and found cats that our community cat work group created this year. And it's available online, and it is inward facing for shelter staff to start this conversation of when someone calls and said, I lost my cat, what do I do? And for what do we do when we get in a cat that we can see is clearly owned? What steps should we be taking? So this document is available if it's helpful for you or your staff. We'll get you the link. Bobby can drop it in the chat as we go. But we need to be really conscious of what info are we providing the public who's lost or found a cat. We can't be telling them put a litter box out and things that we know don't work. We want to be giving them the right information to get more people, more of those cats reunited.
Yeah, it's, a lot of shelters have lost and found pages now, but it's tough with cats. It's hard to cover all the scenarios and permutations with a few tip sheets. So this is the thing Monica suggested. Here's how it came out. This is the, basically it's a crash course in lost cat behavior. It covers the strategies for each kind of cat and the mistakes and how to lure a cat instead of hunting it. Basically, the idea was to create a show and tell to recover any cat in any situation. And this was the original table of contents. It's changed over the years, but you can see some of the topics. The plan was to make it comprehensive, but not overwhelming. And it also covers what to do once the cat is found. This is important too, because a lot of cats who've been in starvation mode can go into hepatic lipidosis. There's refeeding syndrome, where they can go into organ failure because people just want to give them this all-you-can-eat buffet when they get home. And, after starvation, that's dangerous. Anyway, a cool side note here. After I coached a veterinarian in Spain to find her cat, and once he was recovered, she offered to translate it into Spanish for me. So now I have these two versions. And between those two, we have recovered cats all over the world. This is a map from 4 years ago. I should add the new flags, but as of 2017, it had gotten cats found in 48 states and 23 countries, which makes me happy. This is another thing people need to be aware of. This is not really something that's advice when you're looking for a cat, but you need to be aware in multi-cat households that this non-recognition aggression, you bring the cat who's been lost back in, and because they're so focused on smell, the lost cat's going to smell different. And you can't just drop him in the living room. Look, Poncho, your buddy's home, because the other cats are going to think it's an intruder and attack. And then the poor lost cat with PTSD, he fights back, and then you got another mess. So, you've got to go slow with reintroduction. Oh, here, this is another tidbit. This is cool. This is the importance of getting a photo to confirm sightings. So you know how all tabbies have similar markings, but in cats, the whisker pattern is the equivalent of a human fingerprint. Each one is unique. So you see this first kitty, right, with one dot on top and on the top row. And then the one on the right here has 2 rows, all white whiskers. So who can spot the kitty here who was in the previous slide? Was it based on whisker pattern? Was it number 1, 2, or 3? Let's see who can work for the kitty FBI here. All right. It was number 2. And, you know, another interesting thing with this kitty is he has a mix of black and white whiskers. You notice the other kitties, like this one only has white. Anyway, so I added a video after about a year. I really wanted a companion video because people don't want to read when they're stressed out, but it was also urgent to teach these sleep deprived owners how to use various equipment, you know, show and tell on the various gear to find a lost cat. They need to understand the importance of details when trapping, you know, that can make or break. They need to know how to program trail cameras, set up motion alerts, scent lures, getting cameras into storm drains, what kind of flashlight illuminates fur fibers, when to use bait versus catnip, hand warmers under the bowls in the winter. The difference in traps. Monica, you and I have talked about this, the silver slappy raccoon traps. Yeah, and why cat traps are so much more important. It's too bad True Catch makes them so hard to get. People are like, I got to wait 5 weeks if I want a True Catch trap. You know, things like which bait is best, you know, and should the trap be covered or not covered? And definitely after they're caught, covering the trap, all those little things. Stuff like tracking is important, how to stay aware for the little things. You know, when people are looking for their cat, they're looking for the whole cat and they don't notice the little stuff. So, you know, it's important to stay aware for stuff like fur clumps and scat, scrape marks, drag marks, bird noises, and of course, you know, kitty footprints in the sand. I found a lot of cats just with fur clues. Those are so you can even see which way the cat was going. Was it going into the screen or was it coming out? And then you take the fur off so that if new fur appears, you know he's still in the area. But all these things can add up to whether a cat is found or not. This is another technique, is the sit and don't touch. Monica, I think we tried this. That was our plan A, right? You were sitting in the lawn chair.
Yep, I was sitting out in the driveway for hours and hours and hours like a crazy person in the middle of the night, and with Kim texting me every now and again I'm going, am I doing this right? I'm literally just sitting here in the dark getting eaten alive by my mosquitoes. And Kim was like, yep, keep on keeping on. Just be quiet. I'm going to go to sleep for an hour. You let me know when something changes.
And meanwhile, boyfriend was sitting inside, right?
Yeah, he had to go inside because his blood pressure was through the roof. And I'm like, I can smell your adrenaline over here. You need to go.
So yeah, sometimes this works if people just stay still and they look at their phone, you know, not scan the horizon like a predator. Just sit there with your phone. Usually it's better at night. Cats can see better at night. And you know, like the Poncho case, it's better. Sometimes it's better to lure a cat than to beat the bushes with a search party. It's seriously so hard to get people to back off and muzzle those hunt, find, grab predator instincts. So yeah, we all know an ignored cat is more likely to approach. So, you know, I tell people to do the slow blink and then look away and be patient. And, you know, I have a demo of how to do the kitty burrito, because if you're going to sit out there, you got to have a towel and be ready to do the kitty burrito wrap so that when you carry them in, they're not freaking out. But, you know, no matter what the cat or the situation, I tell people, if what you're doing isn't working, try something else. A lot of people they put a trap out every night and they think their cat's not there because he's not going in the trap, and they're not trying any other stuff. So, although I would say most cats are recovered with the online guides, there are a few unusual cases that need some special coaching. And so I offer this whole profiling. It's a lost cat kit, I guess. And, I'll profile the cat, and it's sort of like what we did, Monica, but more formal with a written profile. But yeah, since owners usually give up in 2 weeks because partly lack of support, grief, they don't know what to do. So a lot of times, often my coaching is to help people resist the despair, keep them focused and moving forward. So this long distance Zoom guidance has worked well, especially with the pandemic. So the takeaway here is, yes, lost cats require special techniques, not only different from dog, but different for each type of cat. So it's more than just putting out a trap. And while tools and techniques are key, the most important thing is don't give up. I can't tell you how many cases people were just so damn determined. They just would not give up, so dedicated. And it would take 10 months, but they found their cat. So the key is patience. You got to have the patience of a cat. And here's the ultimate reward: happy cats back home instead of starving strays in the shelters. So this is my job. This is how I stay focused in this odd little niche and constantly improve. This is all I do. It's how I pay the rent and keep buying equipment. Kitties. And here, this is Crystal and Nomu. This is the 10-month example. These two relentless, dedicated people. And this is the night after they found him, and they were both just wiped out. Last week, I had an interesting case of a cat. This is my first Tesla case. Milo, he had been hiding in the owner's Tesla for 5 days and 17 miles. The owners had been, oh my God, our cat's lost. Let's go to Home Depot and get a trap. He was in the Tesla back and forth and back and forth. I think maybe because Teslas are so quiet, the cat's less likely to jump out and bail like Ruby did. But yeah, wonderful, amazing stories of owners who didn't give up. And I absolutely love helping them. So this is just a suggestion. If you hear about a cat, on Nextdoor or Facebook, please send them, tell them there's professional help. So many people come to me and they're like, I didn't know this job existed. I didn't know people did this. Actually, I think I'm the only one. I may be the only one that is full-time lost cats. So this is another early case. That was Jackson. But yeah, I have a Facebook page where I put some of my happy reunion stories on it, and hopefully those inspire people whose cats are lost. Monica, I should add you and Davey to that.
Yeah, you should. We do have some, I'm sorry, Kim, you go ahead and then we'll start with questions. We've got a bunch of good ones.
Yeah, that's it. That's Lost Cat Psychology. And I'm open to any ideas. If somebody thinks, I'm working on this year's edition of the book. So anybody that has tips or ideas they think I should add, there's my email.
Yeah, it's been a really lively and fun chat. We've got the Trap King in the house giving out trap advice, and yeah, but it's been humbling, I think, to the whole group. I hope you had the same takeaway that I do of how often this is happening. So many of us in the chat have also lost our own personal cats and went through this, and so many people said, except I had no one. I didn't have Kim to call at 1 a.m. And that's what we needed to get better on. We can't all call Kim at 1 a.m. She would be extremely busy and very tired. But we, as the resource center for our communities, need to learn this information, and we need to be able to disseminate it out to the public. And so I hope that this webinar is the first step in that process. But lots of good questions. Kim, most of them are for you because you have the science behind all this. And that was one of my big takeaways the night that we lost Davy was, this isn't woo-woo. Kim is not a nutcase. I promise you. Kim is not the crazy cat lady. This was so science-based that I was shocked. I was shocked how scientific it was. And so I hope that you'll take a chance and look at Kim's stuff, look at her pages, and learn like I did. And don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us if we can help you through that process. Kim, Gail is asking, to what extent do the wrong search tactics make things worse?
Well, that's going to depend on the cat's personality. You know, if it's a chill, you know, friendly cat and someone is walking around calling, it's not as damaging as if it's a xenophobic cat. So all I can say is probably a lot worse. That's not a scientific answer, but it really depends.
I can say
it can depend on the environment too and the geography. I mean, are you out in the middle? You live by traffic? Or are you in the country?
When I was chasing Davy around and around, we had to take things into account. Like, I'm chasing him further away. Thankfully, we were in a subdivision. But like Kim is saying, if you are backed up to a national preserve or something, and you chase the cat out further away, and so I realized I'm chasing him further away. That was, you know, then the other big danger was I could be chasing him into traffic or into a car. And Kim told me that like him in this situation for my cat, him getting into the skid plate and into an SUV parked somewhere nearby was his greatest risk. So, you know, the chasing was my big, that was Kim's big emphasis, is stop chasing. You're making it worse. Yeah. Kim, why is setting out dirty litter boxes not a good idea? Donna is asking.
Well, you know, this is something we've really studied because it is such a big, huge meme. I don't know how many people here have seen the kitten with the litter box meme. And it says, if your cat's ever lost, put his litter box outside. You can smell it a mile away. I mean, even a bloodhound can't smell a bucket of blood from a mile away. But the reason it's not good, well, first of all, I think it's a superstition. It gets propagated because some cats will come back whether there's a litter box there or not. They were coming anyway, right? They want to get home, and it could a sack of potatoes would have worked just as well. But the main thing with litter boxes is, and I've seen this with trail cameras or ring cameras, it attracts wildlife. It attracts other bully cats who are like, hey, who's this intruder in my territory? And then they beat up your cat and push it further away. Or a raccoon comes in to eat the poop and gets into a scuffle or just freaks your cat out. But the worst thing is coyotes can smell it. You know, cats bury their poop for a reason. And when you expose it, it's like you're blowing their cover. Cats, your home smells more like home than the litter box. An open window is better than a litter box. But when you have a litter box with poop in it, you potentially can draw in coyotes, and I've seen them come eat the poop, and then the cat was never seen again. So several dangers. It's risky and counterproductive.
We have someone asking, is there some value in flyering, especially asking people to check their doorbell cams or Nest cams? Is there value in that? So I know you had me checking Nest cams that night, Kim.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very important. That's one of the first things is put it on Nextdoor and ask people to check their security cams. Nest cams have alone been responsible for finding a lot of lost cats.
Yeah. What do you think about using flashlights at night to look for glowing eyes? Tina asks.
Yeah, I that's the new litter box. I've been seeing that a lot. Personally, I think, well, if it's an outdoor cat that you think was in a fight and got chased away, yes. But if it's an indoor cat, you need nighttime to lure them. So if you're stomping around at night and in the day, the cat doesn't have a chance to come out. He's just going to stay hidden or get pushed further into hiding. So I don't like, I use nighttime to lure instead of search. Now, I do tell people, I do tell people to at least use that hour after dusk to use a flashlight to check the trees, because sometimes you can see a cat better in a tree at night because their eyes are definitely watching you. So, you walk around the base of the tree looking up because they're usually, in that fork. So yeah, flashlight at night, checking the trees. I guess it wouldn't hurt to do a round of the house, but if your cat's not looking at you, it's not going to help a whole lot. So the answer to that is yes, but not every night.
Yeah, and then even if you spot the eyes, as I learned, I still couldn't get him in the house. Half the time I could see the damn cat, but you can't catch him. He did not want to be caught, and
Yeah. You can't catch a cat. You can't catch a three-legged cat.
No, you cannot make a cat do anything, as I often say.
Mhm.
A couple questions and they tie together. Is there anything you can put out to help lure the cats back? And is it wise to put out a ton of food with a trail camera? I know you've heard of the ever popular kitty buffet technique that's been out there for years.
Yeah. Run through that again. That was 2 questions. What was the first
so
one?
is there anything that you can put out that helps lure them back? And is there value in putting out a ton of food, a buffet, and a trail camera?
All right, so the buffet again is risky because it can draw in other critters, but if you get a sighting, definitely. And I'm a big believer in trail camera before traps, because if you just throw a trap out and you don't have a sighting, you don't know if it, some bold cat from next door goes in the trap, freaks out, he's thrashing around in there, and your cat's watching this, you've just blown your chances for your own cat to go in the trap. So you don't want to throw traps out until you know where the cat is. So yes, trail cameras and food are good, but not, everywhere, like Poncho case. Yeah, trail cameras, don't put food out without trail cameras, but I think it's better not to put food in your own yard. You need your yard to be the cat's safe zone, right? So if you put food in your own yard, you're bringing other critters in, just like with the litter box. So your house should be the lure, that is the key thing. Open a window, let the cat smell home. If you're going to use food and trail cameras, it should be in the neighbor's yard or where you got the sighting.
Yeah,
make
Ashley
sense?
had asked, the trail cameras are not cheap and traps are not cheap. And so what can people who don't have access to those do? And I think it's important to mention, you keep mentioning, and I agree with you 100%, essentially what we're doing is luring the cat back home in a lot of these cases, right? We're asking the cat to make good decisions and luring him back instead of forcing the cat or me trying to catch the cat like an idiot. So are there any, I know this depends on each individual cat and situation. What are some low cost options if we can't afford a trail cam in traps?
Well, for traps, I think the best thing to do is find those local TNR people, find those colony caretakers, because the TNR people usually have good traps. And, Alley Cat Allies has the Feral Friends Network, and you can actually get people's email and, always promise, give them a deposit, promise you'll bring the trap back clean. But that's a good way to get traps. Sometimes shelters will loan traps.
Yeah.
As far as trail cameras, they have gotten way cheaper. I mean, you can now get a camera that will text you pictures to your phone in real time for under $100. I know that's not cheap, but other options. Home Depot sells something called a Waze camera. I think it's WAZE. And it's pretty cheap. I think it's $25. Now it's not Wi-Fi, but I mean, it'll do. You can put it outside. You can even use your own, if you have an old cell phone, you can have the old phone be the camera and your new phone be the receiver, and it's free. There's an app called Mini Thing. And Monica, I think I was trying to get you to download that, right?
Yeah.
So that y'all had like a quick, easy.
Yeah,
let's
we
put
had
cameras
multiple
up.
cell phones up in the house running as cameras and all over, and yeah. Our Kim, one of our amazing colleagues, Daniel Bays from HSUS, asked a great question I want to make sure we get to. She said she regularly sees advice to be wary of scams, people who are claiming to have found your pet and they want a reward up front. Are these scams real? Do you see these scams happening, or is this entire concept of a scam a myth?
Well, I think they've decreased lately. I mean, when Craigslist was the go-to instead of Facebook for lost pets, there was a lot more scamming. Now it's a new scam. Right now I'm working on a case of a guy whose SUV got stolen with 3 cats in it. And we got immediately somebody saying, I have the cats, send me $100 for proof of life. Right. So, that's a kid that's seen some movie somewhere and $100. But yes, Danielle, the key to that is just demand a photo. There's no reason someone can't text a photo to prove they have the cat.
Yeah. Bobby, you're going to have to help me out with this one. We have a question for a shelter worker wondering how to tell the difference between a community cat and a lost stray cat. So I know we've got links for that we've created from Haas. And so Bobby's going to be typing his little fingers off right now, looking for that. And then he'll throw that in the chat. We've only got a couple minutes left and there's a bunch of good questions yet. Is it ever worthwhile to put food out to keep the cat near the home once they start coming out of hiding?
No, I'm just going to say no. If you put food out, the cat's going to eat it and then go back into hiding. You want the cat to be hungry enough to either go in a trap or come in the door. So giving them food is like saying, oh, you'll be fine out there. Here, I'll feed you. You'll be okay. You need them to be hungry to break cover. That threshold period I mentioned, that's, from 10 days roughly to 2 weeks is really important. That's when they're like, oh, I'm so hungry and I want to go home so bad. And we need that to happen.
Yeah. We've got 2 questions I want to get to in the last 2 minutes here. How does the group feel? And I love everybody's opinion on this. Does anyone know if Petco's Love Lost face recognition app is any use to cats versus dogs? Now, I know that we've made that the app has been working hard on improving functionality for cats versus dogs. But do you have thoughts on that, Kim, or if anyone else on the group in the call? Are you using Petco's Love Lost face recognition app?
Yeah, I think it's good and hopefully it's improving. The problem is, if you look at this, cat's eye to nose ratio, eye, nose to ear, is all pretty much the same. With dogs, it's very different, long snout, tall ears, floppy ears. But cats have such similar ratios that it's tough. As far as I know, it's not been real successful with cats, but maybe that's changed.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get there soon. Okay, so last question. We got 1 minute left, and I'm going to combine a few questions. We've got some people who are going through hell right now with missing cats, of course. We have Nancy. We've got Yolanda. A lot of people saying my cat is missing. One of them has been gone for 4 years from a wildfire, but the owner saw her once. We have other people that are saying it's been months. Should I give up? Everyone wants to know, is there hope?
There's always a hope. I say don't give up until you find a body. If you find a body, then but you got to consider, there's 8 possible scenarios to explain a lost cat. And a lot of people just focus on 3. Don't forget, cats get transported. And if you haven't had a sighting in a year or 4 years, maybe your cat ended up, a town over. So you got to consider all 8 probabilities. I would say don't give up.
I think that is a great note to wrap this up on. Never give up hope. Remember that it is a coping mechanism when we do give up hope, because we want the grief to stop and we want to move on from that pain. But remember, all of you on this call know how resilient and how badass cats are. And so if there is any possibility of hope, keep on keeping on. Hit Kim up at her website, learn from the information that's out there. Don't hesitate to email us if you have questions. We want to make resources available to shelters to help you reunite more cats with the people who are desperate to get them back. And so if we can empower you to do that in any way, both Kim and I are here as a resource to you. So thank you everyone for joining tonight. Thank you so much, Kim, for everything you have done for me and for Davey and for everyone on this call. I hope it was educational. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I hope that this helps you get more cats back into homes in 2022. Okay, have a good night, everybody. Thank you.